Hello and welcome. In this video, we're going to be talking about a recent decision made by the Supreme Court that's made little crybaby Trump start whining and cutting fits. But before we get into that, if you do want to donate, I do have options. But first, don't put yourself in financial straits, in financial struggle. We don't need that. If you have bills to pay, other things to take care of, do that, please. It's tough enough out there for everybody. But if you're able to and you want to, then by all means, I appreciate it. It's just me, myself, and I that does this, and thus I have two forms you can pay through. One is the coffee account, which allows smaller amounts or just one-time payments, while Patreon you can pay month to month. With all that said, let's jump into this video. So yeah, Supreme Court, instead of being the Supreme Clown car they have been, finally pushes back. And they're like, yeah, what you're using to justify these tariffs, not allowed. I'm just angry it's taken over a year to do this. This is why the country's in a sad state, because this moron, the annoying orange, is just doing what he wants when he wants, because he thinks he should be king and thus be able to do what he wants. He'll sit there and proclaim, I love the Constitution, but you're tearing it up every freaking step of the way. Every friggin' step. Have you even read the Constitution? I doubt he has. He is so putrid of an individual, so pathetic on his level of intelligence. But because actual law and order takes time to go through official channels, again, because he wants to act like a king and do whatever he wants, we're in these situations right now. Because he's willing to do whatever he wants when he wants, because it buys him time, while law and order is a much slower process. But it makes you wonder sometimes if we need something beyond law and order to fix this. But I'd rather the system go through the proper channels to get fixed. It's just right now the system's so rigged. There needs to be a serious accounting of those committing the crimes, those doing nothing to stop it. You know, it's... Anyway, yeah, the Supreme Court strikes down Trump's sweeping tariffs, sparking fierce pushback and a vow of new levies. Yeah, he's already said, I'll put on a 10% and some extra. Because one of the first things he did is he's like, I'm going to do tariffs. The greatest thing in the world. No. There's a reason other intelligent leaders have never done tariffs or used them sparingly. But of course, this idiot in chief, but yeah, Trump said he was absolutely ashamed of some justices who ruled 6-3 against him, calling them disloyal to our Constitution. Every other move you make is disloyal to the Constitution. And lapdog. No, you want them to be lapdogs because you want them to be at your, to say everything you do is correct. No. In this case, they actually did their job. Despite the fact how stupid they've been of recent, giving you such unfettered power. The decision could have ripple effects on economies around the globe after Trump's moves to make post-World War II trading alliance by wielding tariffs as a weapon, but he pledged to impose a new global 10% tariff under a law that's restricted to 150 days and has never been used to apply tariffs before. So again, nothing gives him that power, but he's going to do it anyway because he thinks he's a friggin' king. You know, the founding fathers were very much against kings and kingship. The first leading document, the Articles of Confederation, were very much against a sole power. But they had trouble with taxation and everything, so they made the Constitution to say there needs to be some measure of regularity of an executive who has some ability, but they were extremely cautious to put it in to have checks and balances because they were like, we do not want another king. But Trump, he don't care. Like I said, I doubt the idiot's ever read the Constitution. God knows he's never read the Articles of Confederation. This right here says I can do whatever I want. No, it don't. You're an idiot. But he goes on, their decision is incorrect, but it doesn't matter because we have powerful alternatives. The court's ruling found tariffs that Trump imposed under an emergency powers law were unconstitutional, including the sweeping reciprocal tariffs he levied on nearly every other country. Trump appointed 3 of the justices on the nation's highest court during his first term and scored a series of short-term wins that have allowed him to move ahead with key policies. So, like I said, this doesn't redeem the Supreme Court. In my eyes, there's still a Supreme clown car. because they've allowed so many screw ups so he can move forward hurting people. Tariffs, though, were a first major piece of Trump's broad agenda to come squarely before the Supreme Court for a final ruling after lower courts had sided against the president. The majority found that it was unconstitutional for the president to unilaterally set and change tariffs because taxation power clearly belongs to Congress. Exactly. The power of the purse. You were taught this in school. Belongs to the legislative body, Congress. This is simple stuff you should have learned in school. This is why they need to bring back civics and other things, because clearly some of y'all are too stupid. The framers did not vest any part of the taxing power in the executive branch. Exactly. We know this. It's shown over and over. We do not want a king. We do not want a sole ruler. Of course, Kavanaugh, Alito, and Thomas, the morons, dissented. The biggest pieces of crap that should be kicked off the bench. The tariffs at issue may or may not be wise policy, but as a matter of text, history, and precedent, they are clearly lawful. Shut up, drunkie. Shut up. The court majority did not address whether businesses could get refunded for the billions they have paid in tariffs. Many companies, including the big box warehouse chain Costco, had already lined up in lower courts to demand refunds. Kavanaugh noted the process could be complicated. The court says nothing today about whether, and if so, how the government should go about returning the billions of dollars that was collected from importers, but the process is likely to be a mess, as was acknowledged at oral argument. Again, drunkie, shut up. Sometimes you have to do things because it's the right freaking thing to do, and he needs to refund every bit of that money. I don't give a crap how much it puts the system in jeopardy. If doing the right thing does that, then clearly you have a rigged system. But yeah. And then we've got other articles on it. Al Jazeera, Trump promises new tariffs, slammed the Supreme Court decision. They blocked Trump's emergency tariffs, but plans to invoke other laws to maintain them. And from The Guardian, Trump illegally used executive power to impose global tariffs, Supreme Court rules. But he vows to enact a 10% global baseline tariff after calling the Supreme Court justices a disgrace to the nation. You're the disgrace to the nation. The Supreme Court actually did something right. I've been calling them the Supreme Clown Car. I don't intend to stop yet, because they've got a lot to make up for, because they voted, 9-0 against one of your things, and you just ended up ignoring it. I can't remember what it was actually over, but they did rule 9-0 against you, and you just went ahead and did what you wanted anyway, because you're a whiny little baby. absolutely is. Shameful, dreadful. I'm about to say, how did people vote for this? Think he was great, but I know how it is because y'all listen to the right wing freaking propaganda and let them tell you what to think and thus destroyed America. Thank you. But yeah, we'll go ahead and just. I'm glad they do something right, but y'all got a lot to make up for. A lot to make up for. Saying he had sweeping executive authority on certain things. It's not what the founding fathers wanted. I can tell you that right now. But, like I said, we'll go ahead and end this episode here. As always, educate thyself. Think, read, study, learn. Someone tells you something you have trouble believing. Ask them to cite their sources, and they can't just be some random blog post or tinfoil hat wearing websites. I'll be putting my links in the description box below the video because, they're at least trustworthy sources. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you all in the next one. Until then, later.